challenges were just trying to find those right two people. There wasn't anything that was really uniquely difficult about this play or this project. It's just that we had to see an awful lot of people to finally get to the two people we really wanted. And of course, we also had to do some of it via Zoom.
Right.
We couldn't have just the nature of the world today. We can't get everybody in a in-person audition all the time.
Yeah. Well, and for me as a director who has a long background as an actor, I have so much heart and so much passion and so much appreciation for the work that every single actor brings into the room, because you understand what goes into, working through lines, some amount of memorization, being off book. You understand what goes into reading a play and really, really understanding at its core, like what is each moment asking for, and really making a lot of choices. There's a lot of choices that go into preparing an audition. So I have a lot of respect and a lot of appreciation for every single person that comes into a room and does that and makes themselves vulnerable,
Yeah, and I know you feel this way as a director, and I hope that you know this as an actor, that when we bring people into audition, when we call someone in, however well we know them or don't know them, we might be reaching out to people we've never seen. We want you to be successful.
Yeah.
we know that only one person will be for a given role, but we would love to be wowed by every single person. I know my MO is, at least, and I know yours is too, Tyrone, to try to give the actor the best opportunity to succeed. Yes. It's not a test. It's not we're not trying to see if you can overcome X number of challenges to get the role. We want to help you get the role, and we would love nothing more than to have 10 great prospects for each role and have to really struggle to get to decide which one. It doesn't usually work that way. It is easy, unfortunately, to eliminate a lot of people for different reasons that have nothing to do with their own skill level. Sometimes that is it, but a lot of it is just finding the right qualities, right? But we want everyone to be great.
Yeah.
We hope everyone walks in and wows us. We're not looking to be to eliminate people. Obviously, in the end, we have to. But we want you to succeed. And I think the assumption that I think actors sometimes come in with is that they're fighting against, they're fighting against directors or artistic directors who somehow don't want them to work out. That just isn't the case. I don't know any director or artistic director who doesn't wish all of them, every actor who comes in would wow them. And
yeah. Well, in your experience of auditioning actors and seeing a lot of actors, are there things that you've seen in your time of seeing auditions that you would say, this is something that all actors could benefit from knowing or doing? Or
the biggest one for sure to me is, actors come in, they read the sides and the script, hopefully, if the theater gives them the script, and they have a sense of what they think this character is. The theater might give them even a little bit of character description or whatever. But still, you're making an interpretation. You're making a guess as to what you think how to interpret this role, and you're gonna do that as your first pass. And sometimes you guess wrong, right? You're not on the same page as where the director is thinking right off the bat, or you make just a really bad choice. The big thing for me is, one, on our job as director, artistic director, is to try to see that maybe, okay, they made the wrong choice or maybe a bad choice, but do we see enough there so that they could, with some direction, make a better choice, get closer? And so first of all, that's on us to give them that good direction and clarity, because if we don't do it and we just eliminate them, that's foolish of us. If we think they have something to offer, we need to try to give them a chance to show it. And when we give that direction, the actor has to take it. Have to take it whole hog. If we say, you went over here and what I'm looking for is over here, go over here.
Yeah.
Go a step to the right. go all the way to the right, go
Ah,
away and take that direction. We want to see you be able to take direction. We want to see you make a strong choice in whatever way we asked you to do.
mhm.
And I feel sometimes that actors are always trying to hedge their bets a little and go, one tick to the right, one tick to the left.
Sure.
What I want to see is a big leap, because part of what I'm trying to do in the audition is find out what their range is.
Yeah, how far you can go. Yep.
Do you feel the same way?
I do, especially with this play, because this play is so physical, and there's so much about it that is part of the world affecting the actors being influenced by the world. So seeing how far they could go, or how far they were willing to go, was a big part of just seeing, like, because you can always pull somebody back.
That's so important, Tyrone. That's exactly right. Like if you cross the line, like into, say, caricature, like you go way too far into, it's no longer like believable, but we can see that you got there. That means chances are we can get you back this way on this side of the line, right? But if you only go an inch in that direction, we don't actually know how far you can go.
Yeah.
Super, super important. Also, I feel like it sets up, we want to know when we go into a process, are you already locked in, or do you have the open-mindedness and the ability to try things?
Yep.
That's really, really important to us as artists, because as artistic director and director, because unless you're exactly the person we want, like literally everything, we may not be able to get a certain dimension out of you on a certain facet of the character, right? You may have 3 or 4 of the major qualities, but what if you're missing that 5th quality? And we want to see that. Just show it. Do whatever you can in that audition to show that quality. I try to say up front to an actor, you're giving me this is part of the character. Like, for instance, in Pay No Worship, Martine, he needs to be a more serious, a more thoughtful character, say, than Jose. Okay, so someone comes in and we say, look, you've got this seriousness, but he's also really playful and absolutely adores his cousin. We've got to see that playfulness.
Yeah.
We don't see it, and you don't show it to us at all, no matter how much we tell you, then we may not be able to cast you, right? So yes, you've got one thing, show us the other thing. And if we ask you to do that, go there.
Yeah. One thing that it took me a while to learn this as an actor, but in years of auditions as an actor, I've learned that it really takes being able to sort of stand in knowing that you are enough. That's part of it, but also knowing that you can go completely opposite way than what you thought you were going to do, just to try it out. That's the other thing I think too. And I think what you're saying is I say it another way, what I've always learned is like playful out with yourself, playful out with the person in the scene with you.
Yeah, that's great.
Your reader, just play, because it's called a play, but also like it's a place. I feel like auditions are spaces that are not, what's the word? I think some people treat auditions in sort of this sacred sort of sense. And I mean, obviously it's kind of like an interview, and kind of like we're getting to know each other, but really it is an opportunity for you to go in and play. And so, yeah, having that flexibility is important.
I think that's absolutely critical. You're so right. And play, even playing with something that is very intense and dramatic, is still play. And your ability to show us, and willingness to show us the range that you can do, even with something super intense and dramatic, is really helpful. And on that note, I should also say one other trap I find a lot of actors make is tend to want to make everything emotional and serious.
Yeah,
it takes a lot to get them to play the character. The way I like to think of it is, in any play, there's drama at some point where the characters are forced by circumstance to act out of character, or to show things that are heightened, right? But the question is, who are these people every day? Who are these people? I say at the bank, like when they're standing in line at the bank, who are they and how do they act? We have to capture that, because the big intense moments of a play may not be the moments in which the character is acting like who they really are.
that's interesting.
We want to see them. We want to be able to cast someone who can be believably this character in all circumstances. And then once we understand who they are, the actors and the director, then we can have them act within the circumstances of the play. But if you're only playing those heightened circumstances, everybody is going to play a big knockdown, drag out, intense moment with great drama. But the question is, how does this particular character play that? And the only way to know that is to get at the character before that.
Yeah.
Are they a playful person who's acting very upset, or are they a person who easily gets upset? Those are two very different things, right? And so some of that is actor doing the best job they can in terms of guessing, and some of that is on us as director and artistic director to provide that feedback and say, listen, what you did was great in playing that scene, but what we're really looking for is who this person is. Because we're trying to get, I say this, you've heard me say this, Tyrone, in rehearsal, in auditions many times, I think, which is rehearsal is when we work on the scene. In the audition, we're just using the scene to try to get at the character. Right? Because we're not trying to make the scene work in the audition. That's what rehearsal's for. And I think that's what gets lost in a lot of auditions.
That makes all the sense. Yeah, that makes all the sense.
I'm curious to know, as someone who has worked on Broadway as an actor and has directed cities, and has been to many auditions, what is your experience? What has your experience been now doing 2 shows in Philly in terms of seeing local actors, in terms of seeing theater, in terms of the vibe here that's different from what you're experiencing in other places, and that might be of value to people who are either already here or who might be coming here to audition?
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. The number of people, that's a big difference. In New York City, for instance, you go to an audition for even a play. You go to an audition for something at Playwrights Horizons or Roundabout Theater or whatever, Broadway or whatever. And there could be 200 people there. And if it's like an appointment situation where you're going through an agent, there might be 100 people there.
Right.
For 2 roles or 3 roles or whatever. So just the multitude is different. The magnitude is different.
Yeah.
So that's one big difference. I would say that for this play particularly, because we were looking for younger actors, there weren't as many younger actors who had gone through programs where they had been trained and had backgrounds already and some experience on stage. And so just finding, I think we went to Temple, we went to some of the local colleges to really see, who are there people in your program currently that might be eligible, might be available, or interested to audition. So that was a big difference. I think here in New York, people come right out of college and they come here. So finding young actors here probably wouldn't have been as much of just a tricky thing to deal with.
The numbers are always in your favor in New York, right?
Yeah, there's just more people, which makes it better, but also makes it, a lot different for actors. I would say, what other differeres? The question was, what are the differences that I've seen in other cities?
Well, and just what has been your experience directing in Philly, both as a director, but also your sense of it as an actor?
Oh, I think it's great. I mean, I think Philly as a theater city is amazing because you guys have. I say you guys because there are so many resident companies there. There's so many companies that are hiring actors over and over again. You have just a body of theaters there, a community of theaters there. So you get to see the same actors. You get to really know them. You get to know their body of work. Here in New York, there's Broadway, there's the off-Broadway space, there's off-Broadway. But I mean, you could go to an off-Broadway theater and see different actors every season. Like somebody could do a show at Roundabout Theater and never do another show there. Somebody could do a show on Broadway and never do another Broadway show. So again, just the magnitude and just sort of not to make it sound transactional, the Broadway community and the community here in New York is very tight and very not as big as you might think in terms of the people who are working. And it's very close knit. I mean, I loved working on Broadway. It was a family. We were a family. But there's still, there's 200 people for kind of vying for all those roles. And I think in Philly, you have a tight community and you have sort of a group of people who hold each other up and I love also the designers there, you know, that I've had the like blessing of working with are just awesome. The theater, Interact is just a great supportive theater. And other theaters where I've met people and talked to, I get a real sense that there's a real community there of people.
Yeah, I mean, there's no question. Yeah, there's no question. It's way smaller. Just the acting pool is just, you know, the pool of artists as a whole and the pool of theaters is just much smaller. And there's an upside and a downside to that. Obviously, the downside is in terms of looking for artists, it's much harder. The upside is that the average person that's known in the community, who, you know, is you will have those repeats. So relationships develop, not between a group of people that's working on a show, which obviously happens anywhere all the time, but over time, there's a sense we often talk about here as that we're kind of a repertory company. The city of Philadelphia as a theater community is kind of a repertory company because, as you identified, actors will work around at many theaters, but they'll return to many theaters. Designers will be bouncing around at many different theaters and have relationships with those theaters. And that's different in the, obviously there's a little bit of that in New York, but with so many actors to choose from for any given show, the mindset in New York is we're going to find that one right actor.
Oh yeah.
When we pick a season, apart from a few roles that we might have known up front, we want to cast this actor, and we have to get them right away so that they don't get by somebody else. For the most part, our attitude is we're going to choose from among this set of people that we kind of mostly know, if it's not really young actors, and we'll be happy.
Yeah,
and we kind of know what that pool is.
Yeah,
we like bringing people back. We're not looking for the perfect, exact right actor. We're looking to work with actors that we're trying to constantly stretch and show what they. But when we get to young actors, like we're doing with Pay No Worship, as you mentioned, it would be nicer in some ways to me if we had not 100 or 200, but maybe 25, 30, instead of 8, 10, 12. And that's, you know, so the way we ended up with this show to me is not surprising, where we have one local actor who, by the way, came through a recommendation from a colleague. I known about that actor, and that's wonderful that's the way that came about. And then the other actor submitted through an agent from New York. That's how that came about. So we have a little bit of both, even though we saw predominantly local actors. But
they were amazing.
That's not atypical.
It would. I mean, it's so interesting too, because the one thing I will say is, like, it was amazing. Oh, and also I just was reminded. So some of the actors that we saw for Pay No Worship, I actually invited to audition for another play that I'm directing.
Oh, that's great.
And vice versa. So just because I got a chance to see them for both different projects, but I was like, oh, you might be right for this part. So that also happens, you know, where if somebody comes in and they've done a well-prepared audition, they do a good job, but maybe they're just not right for one role, but, oh, I'm doing something at another theater, you know, that you are right for. So let me see if you're available and interested in coming in for that. So that did happen on this play,
right?
Where I was able to kind of do some cross, you know, auditioning between theaters.
And that's something that we find, I know you find all the time, that the value of the audition is not only getting this role, showing this director and this theater what you can do, so that even if you're not right for this role, they're going to bring you back for something else.
Yes.
That is such an important factor. You know, only one actor is going to get that role, but if you show yourself well, you put yourself in position to get future roles.
Yes.
And to be talked about among colleagues. You know, if you and I saw a good actor in Pay No Worship, and then we're in a conversation somewhere about something else, and someone says, "Do you guys know anybody who might do this role?" We go, "Yes, this actor would be great," but they had to be great in the audition, even though they didn't get our role. We're now telling a colleague of ours about them, right?
That just happened. That literally just happened. Where I was talking to another artistic director about a play or musical that he was about to mount, and he asked, "Do you happen to know anybody who might be good for this role?" And I was able to say, "Oh, let me think about that." Went back and I really gave it some thought, because for me also, any opportunity to provide an opportunity for somebody, or to create a space where somebody who's awesome, like, should be working and like should be busy, like, there's no reason why I wouldn't want to, help facilitate that if I can in some small way,
For
so
sure.
yeah, to your point, absolutely. Let me just see. I want to make sure I'm not missing anything that Jasmine wants us to cover too. What do you think when people of color need? Okay. Oh, you know what? So Jasmine asked, what do we think young people of color need to do in order to make a career for themselves in this business? Um, yeah, let me think about that for a second. Do you have any immediate thoughts?
Well, I'm gonna let you talk about what it might mean more for a person of color. I can say that, this is a tough industry. We all know that. And being a freelance artist is tough, period, because you're dependent on someone to hire you. It's tough, and it's unrelentingly tough.
Yes.
So of course you have to want to do it. You have to try to hone your skills constantly as well as you can, and to be as open-minded as possible to go with, what the opportunities are and what directors are telling you and so forth. You have to be your own worst critic, and really try to hold yourself to the highest possible standard, and pursue every opportunity that's out there, because you never know what might turn into something. I just think I have been saying for 20 years now that I think the most impactful change in the American theater in my professional time has been this explosion of talent, of color, across the board, playwrights, directors, designers, actors.
Yes.
So much talent now, and it's absolutely wonderful for the industry. We are able to be representative in a way that we never were, and it's just fantastic. However, it also means there's tremendous amount more competition for everyone.
Yes.
And so, you have to do what it takes to single yourself out while also maintaining as much mental health as you can.
Yes.
It's a grueling industry. So those are very general thoughts, but
yeah, I mean, as you were talking, like bullet points kept coming up in my mind. So I'll try to remember. About 4 things came to mind for me. I think taking care of yourself, that the last sort of thing that you touched on is very important, and it's one of the hardest things to maintain because, like you said, in our industry, we're kind of contract to contract or opportunity to opportunity. So just making sure that you take care of yourself. I used to always call it like the in the meantime. What are you doing in the meantime? How are you taking care of yourself in the meantime? I think that's important. Having a meantime, meaning having other things that you do, other things you enjoy, family, whatever. But I think there's never been another time like now, in our industry for people of color and for artists of color, in terms of just the stories that are being told at a commercial level, even. Our voices are resonating and are significant in the field right now, and we've always been there. But I think to your point, the number of opportunities have just continued to build and increase, which is incredible, as it should be. So I think understanding that you have agency, understanding that you can create your own work. I think for young artists of color, not just sitting and waiting for the phone to ring, so to speak, or not just sitting and waiting for the text to come in or whatever it is, but really like making space for yourself if you can, getting together with friends and colleagues and making things happen for yourself, so that people like Seth, artistic directors and people who run theaters can hear about what's going on at your small space and can go and see what you're up to, making yourself and your work be known. I think that's also important. And I think for young people of color to make a career for themselves, I think training or just preparation is important, because obviously getting your foot in the door with a recommendation is huge, but then you have to actually like bring it and do your work,
sure,
the best work you can. So I think that comes from training. I myself, after almost 8 years in the business of working, like being consistent as an actor, working, went back and got more training because I knew that there were things that I didn't know and things that I needed to build on. And so I went back and I went through a long training program, and that was before graduate school, actually. So training and making sure that I knew everything that I could possibly know so that I could do the work.
Yeah.
And then I think, gosh, it's such a big question.
Yeah. It made me think that also that something that I think a lot of actors have questions about, which is how appropriate is it to reach out, and as opposed to just, as you said, waiting for someone to find you.
Mhm.
How much should they feel empowered to reach out? And I think the answer is you should reach out respectfully, excuse me, with a certain degree of aggressiveness. That is, you should never. There's a line between being a pain in the ass and being appropriate. But if you never reach out, there's a chance we just don't know who you are.
Yeah.
When you're graduating a theater program, for instance, in Philadelphia, or you're moving to Philadelphia, you should reach out to every theater, not just with your headshot and resume, but ideally with a monologue on tape, so that we get a quick sense of you. And if you don't do that, and you're just expecting us to find you, we may not find you, right? And then after you come in for an audition, no matter how it went, I would reach back out at some point and say, hey, just, maybe it's when the new season just gets announced, or before if you have anything in the new season for me, let me know. A few of my actor friends, actual friends, will do that, but I'm surprised at how few people do. I think that's perfectly reasonable to remind me that you're out there and say, hey, as you're looking to put your new season together, if there's a role for me, I'd love to be brought in. I think that's great. I respect you for saying that. Now, I won't respect you for saying it 5 times, right? In the course of a month, right? If I have read that email, hopefully, and not responded, that's probably because I don't have anything for you. But so respect that. But to not write at all feels like a little foolish. So feel free. Most artistic directors, casting directors are happy to hear from you sometimes.
Yes.
As long as you're not overdoing it. And I think it's very smart for you to put yourself on the radar every now and then.
Well, and I think particularly for artists of color, because you have to understand, in terms of just sheer numbers in the industry, we represent a smaller group of the industry. So particularly if, for instance, I just am in callbacks on a play that I'm doing in April, and we're looking particularly for young African American women, and so to find a group of young African American women who can do this role, there's a smaller number than say if we're looking for a Caucasian woman or so anyway.
And younger actors in general, it's really important for, because we can't know everybody who's coming out of college and moving here or graduating from MFA programs and so forth. We just can't know them all. So you have to introduce yourself to us. Once you've been around for 5-10 years, most of the artistic directors and freelance directors know who you are or know of find you. But when you're first coming out of school or moving here, we don't know who you are. So it's incumbent upon you to put us on your radar, put yourselves on our radar, excuse me.
Yeah, I think how you do that is important too. To Seth's point, I think an email, or hey, I'm in a show, I would love to invite you. A postcard.
Always good.
I think that's when you want to reach out to people. I think the sort of there used to be a thing way back. This probably doesn't happen anymore, but there used to be a thing way back where actors would send a headshot resume to the same people once a month or once every 2 months.
That's not helpful.
No, they got it. It's all good. You don't have to send this, 12 times a year or whatever. I would say send stuff to people when you have something going on, when you have something to say, or when I say you have something to say, meaning you have something that's coming up that you can invite them to. I would say for, one thing I've heard a Broadway director say that annoyed her is when people kind of slip into her DMs on Instagram, and their reach out is kind of veiled as something genuine, but it's she can read right through it. Be genuine in your reach out, whatever it is. Keep it brief. Everybody's busy. Everybody's busy, not just directors, artistic directors, writers, whatever. You're busy too. Actors are busy too. So understand that people are just moving and having their lives. So keep it short, a sentence or two, and then leave it at that. And let your work speak for you.
If you actually did the work as an actor to find my contact information on our website and couldn't find it, and there was no way to contact us to send a headshot resume, say. Then finding me on Facebook or something and saying exactly that. I couldn't find your information. Is it okay? Would it be possible for me to submit my headshot resume? Okay. But if you don't do that work and you're just trying to get to me that way, I will see through that.
Yeah.
Most of us, there's a way to get there's a way to reach out to a theater and submit a headshot resume, even if it's just the generic info line, which almost always will get sent, forwarded to the right person. So
Yeah.
in case it usually comes through the box office, someone sends an info at Interact Theater message and it goes to our box office, and the person who is running the box office will send that to me.
Mm-hmm.
So it will get to me. But yeah, going to my DM is not an appropriate. All other things have been exhausted,
Yeah. Let me see what one more. I think we have time for probably one more. Yeah, this is a really good one. What challenges do young men of color face, and what challenges did I face breaking into the industry? Well, I say this is a good one as it pertains to me. Sorry, that wasn't. I said that too
That's
early.
for you.
That's what the good one. Now, how can we frame this a little in a different way? Because I want to make it applicable to obviously young men of color and young artists of color, but also something that could be more applicable across the board too. Okay, so first of all, when I first started acting, I started auditioning for Broadway shows and tours and all that. There would be like one African American male like in the show. Like that was literally what Broadway was like, unless you were talking about something like The Lion King,
Right.
Which is predominantly Black and South African actor cast. So that said, usually like it literally be like either me or one of my buddies, like, and we would root for each other. Like whoever it was that got the role, we'd be happy for that person because it'd be like my chance is going to come around. Like now we're in a space where there are so many shows featuring people of color, artists of color. So it's a little different climate right now in the industry. That doesn't mean it's easier, but I'm just saying that there are more opportunities. So making sure that you are ready whenever that comes. I think, the saying is something like, opportunity is preparation or success is preparation meets opportunity. Is that the saying?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. So like when the opportunity comes, like, are you ready to like jump in fully? So I think that's one thing, the preparation. I would say like when I audition as an actor, the 5 things I'm thinking about are presentation, how I present myself coming into the room, that very first moment. I would say preparation. Have I really done the work on the material to be ready to really fully perform and do my work and do my best work in front of the director, the artistic director, whomever. Mm-hmm. Listening, that is the number one thing that I think most people don't do when they're in the audition room, because we're so amped up and we're so nervous and adrenaline kicks in and we just aren't listening. Mm-hmm. So really, if a director says to you, let's try it again and let's do blah, 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 whatever that is, one thing that I do is I'll repeat the thing to them. Mm-hmm. Let me make sure I understand. So you're looking for, it to be a little lighter this time. So I'm like also repeating it to myself to make sure I'm listening and really hearing it. And then I guess, if there's an opportunity for you to really hold on to your power in this space. And when I say that, I mean, like really, like this is your time to do your work and for you to show them your take on the character. So take it and do it. Like don't feel rushed. Don't feel like you have to rush yourself through your audition. Yeah. Particularly if it's an appointment like we did at the theater, at the Drake. Like we were there and giving everybody ample time to like really see what they could do. And then I always say, like, if there's an opportunity to really like genuinely just connect with the people behind the table, whoever they are, Broadway director, producer, whatever, like really connect with them and, thank you so much for your time or whatever it is. A lot of people did that in our audition process. Yeah. And I didn't need that as a director, but it just told me, okay, this is a person who would be cool to like be in a rehearsal process with for 3 weeks. They actually are thoughtful, or they, how was your day? Like, just that kind of thing. Obviously you can't do too much hobnobbing because we are there for a reason, but those are sort of the 5 things that I think, anybody could benefit from just thinking about those things when they audition, but particularly young artists, young actors who are just getting started and just starting,
Yeah, those are awesome. I I would just add that whether it's before the audition or in the audition itself, if you have a pressing question, something that you went in the script or in the character that just like tonally you didn't understand, or there was a contradiction in the character and you didn't know whether this clue in this part of the script, how how to interpret, ask the question. If you want to ask it up front before the audition via email, hopefully I would try to answer that question, because I want to give the actor the best chance to prepare. But if you don't do that and you have the question coming into the audition, ask it before you start, because it could determine the direction that you go, and that could determine how the audition goes, right? If you're not sure about something, ask it. Now, what I find is that most actors ask very small questions like, how do you pronounce this word? Or something that really is immaterial to what we're mostly looking for. We're looking for character, trying to cast the best person to inhabit this character. But if you have a pressing question about the play or the character, ask it.
Yeah.
Why not? And I also agree that some interaction, not too much, but some interaction also allows the audition to relax a little, because the tendency is for someone to come in and feel this pressure to get it right. And a little bit of banter, I think, helps relax everybody. It gives us a chance to say to the actor, get to know them a little, and then say, okay, good, relax, that's great. Like we're all just people.
Yeah, that's it.
And I think that relaxing people usually helps. Carrying all that anxiety is not the best way to show yourself. So
yeah. Wow. Well, this has been great. I hope that that it will be illuminating for artists, young, old, whatever, young, old, and in between. Because I really do believe that, especially now, we're in a different space in our industry than I think we've ever been before. I think the American theater we're in the middle of some kind of renaissance, which is awesome. A space where I think actors, artists, designers, everybody's being treated with more autonomy and just more transparency. And I think the ability for us all to sort of demystify the process and just look at each other as colleagues and say, hey, I called you in for this audition because you fit the bill and I think you have the right experience. So let's see if we can work together, like just keeping it that way, as opposed to it being this sort of like wall that I sit behind this table and you stand up on that stage and you show me, like it's not that. I think maybe in some spaces it is, but in the spaces that I think you, Seth, as an artistic director, and me as a director are not trying to create that kind of a dynamic, because that's not where the play comes in. Like there's no space for the play in that kind of dynamic.
Yeah, and I would just add that this is me, and I know it's you. Life as an actor is hard enough. We shouldn't be making it harder by putting up those walls and not being transparent and making your life, making the process of trying to get a job even more anxious and unpleasant. I feel like it's our job to do as much as we can to make it reasonable, given how difficult the life is. So I think most directors and artistic directors are like that, not all. And you should go in with the assumption that that's the case. And occasionally you're going to meet someone who's not. But most of us want you to succeed. We want you to not feel anxious, and we want you to not have an unpleasant experience.
Right.
Knowing that we still have to make one decision, and in the end, all the other people who auditioned are going to be disappointed. But that doesn't mean the process has to be unpleasant. Hopefully the process is rewarding, maybe sometimes even you learn something and or are even inspired by it and motivated by it. So that's our hope.
Yeah. Well, and just one thing that I was reminded of in all my years of auditioning in New York too, for Broadway, for everything in between, Broadway, television, I have never, ever felt like a casting director or a director was there to be my enemy or there to judge me harshly. I've never felt that way. So just as a sort of a button on what you're saying, even in the Broadway space and even in the commercial theater space, I think the sentiment is the same. They want to give everybody the best opportunity to be seen in their best light so that they can cast the thing with the best people they can. So yeah, that's great to end on, I think. Well, thank you so much, Seth. It was great.
Thank you.